Is something really out there? 3 more U.S. senators received a classified briefing about UFOs at the Pentagon, or in current lingo, unidentified aerial phenomena. You may have heard that pilots and other military personnel have been reporting these kinds of sightings for years. A couple weeks ago, the Department of Defense even released footage shot by a Navy Super Hornet pilot. But you may not have known that back in 2007, Congress directed the Pentagon to set up a $22 million search for the truth. And Tom Foreman is with me more on the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program. So, Tom, talk to me about these senators getting the classified briefings on UFOs.
Yeah, well, here's the interesting thing. It's easy to laugh at this, easy to think it's silly or it's just a bunch of hokum out there. But Senator Mark Warner, who is the vice chair of the Intelligence Committee, said, look, I think it's important. He told us just this afternoon, I think it's important that the military is taking this more seriously now than they did in the past. So what are they taking seriously? Those videos you were talking about relate to a couple of different sightings we're talking about. In 2004, there was one called the Tic Tac sighting. They called it that because they said it looked like a Tic Tac flying out there very close to the water on the West Coast. And then more recently, there were some out on the East Coast that people were talking about, 2014, 2015, where these pilots were describing seeing these things up to 30,000 feet in the air, flying at extraordinary speeds, hypersonic, well over the speed of sound, changing direction in the most astonishing ways, and seemingly defying the laws of physics. Listen to what one of these pilots had to say.
No distinct wings, no distinct tail, no distinct exhaust. It seemed like they were aware of our presence because they would actively move around us.
So that's what has everyone excited here. These reports, the release of these videos, and you mentioned the program. That was originally started by Senator Harry Reid because they said, look, we just need to know what's going on. It only lasted about 5 years. It's been shut down for a number of years. And they said they really didn't find anything. But Brooke, you know, the obvious question here is there something out there? Not necessarily extraterrestrial, but is there something else? Some kind of drone, some kind of secret technology, something that maybe we control, maybe we don't.
Maybe they'll get to the bottom of that. I know that in April, the Navy actually issued guidelines for pilots to report any sightings of the unidentified aerial phenomena. Are you surprised this kind of information is now getting out to the public?
Well, I think it's been a long time in coming, Brooke. I mean, this is the sort of thing back early in my reporting career, some 30, 40 years ago, you would hear about, but at the time it was just sort of released as a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists with a bunch of ideas out there and people taking pictures of an odd-shaped cloud in the sky. I'm not really surprised that we're finally getting to the point of looking at this more carefully, and particularly, Brooke, when you think about the technology we're dealing with today. We're dealing with technology that we really haven't seen before. Remember, when the first stealth fighters came out, there had been pictures of these things taken from very far by civilians saying there's some kind of strange aircraft out here that we've never seen before. Eventually, we found out what it was, but initially it was just a mystery. So I think for a lot of people who aren't looking for space aliens, this is still very interesting because they're saying, is it something, even if it's not space aliens, is it something that will make a difference in the future? And again, is it something that the U.S. is controlling, or is this some new technology that somebody else has developed?
30 seconds, Tom. What has President Trump said about this?
You've got to listen to what President Trump said about it. It's really interesting. ABC asked him about it. Listen to his comment.
Well, I think our great pilots would know. And some of them really see things that are a little bit different than in the past. So we're going to see. But we'll watch it. You'll be the first to know.
So the top levels of government, they're talking about it, Brooke. No answers yet, but a lot of questions.
Tom Foreman, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
In our Out of This World lead, ET phone Capitol Hill. A group of senators have received a classified Pentagon briefing over reports of UFO sightings by Navy pilots. This just days after President Trump confirmed he has been briefed but remains skeptical.
I did have one very brief meeting on it, but people are saying they're seeing UFOs. Do I believe it? Not particularly.
But Navy pilots told the New York Times they had multiple encounters with UFOs along the U.S. coast, as seen in this video, which bizarrely has no visible engine or exhaust. Joining me now is CNN aviation analyst Miles O'Brien. And Miles, you've been studying space most of your career. What does the fact that the president and lawmakers are being briefed on this say about the possible validity of these UFO sightings by Navy pilots?
Well, there's a long history of the military looking into this. You know, one of the big problems, Jake, is it's been overclassified over the years. The secrecy surrounding it all, of course, just adds to all the rumor mill. But I can tell you that, you know, there are bona fide sightings by people who have great expertise in the air. I actually have seen a UFO up in Maine years ago, an object that flew at incredible speed and seemed to stop in the air. What was that? Was that some sort of secret military program, which might explain all the classification? But I think it's high time to open up all the books on this over the years and see what the military has learned, what sorts of programs they had to investigate. Let's see what's going on at Area 51.
It certainly sounds like something out of a movie. The President of the United States and top U.S. lawmakers briefed on a series of so-called UFO sightings by military pilots, but it's real life, and there's growing concern tonight about what could be a potential threat to American airmen and women. CNN's Brian Todd is joining us with details. Brian, I understand there's actually video of some of these so-called close encounters.
There is some pretty dramatic video, Wolf, from the cockpits of military planes, and tonight we've spoken to pilots who have spotted those UFOs. There have been enough of these sightings in recent years with specific descriptions from sharp-eyed pilots that the U.S. military is now streamlining its process for reporting those incidents.
Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at that, man.
A veteran fighter pilot surprised by an object outside his cockpit window.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
This video is from a U.S. military training mission off the coast of Jacksonville, Florida in 2015. The object is a UFO, and American military pilots have seen so many of them in recent years that the Navy tonight tells CNN it's briefed members of Congress this week on what it calls threats to the safety and security of our aviators. The Navy won't comment on what it told members of Congress. Senate Intelligence Committee Vice Chair Mark Warner is one member who got a classified briefing.
One of the key takeaways I'd have is that the military and others are taking this issue seriously, which I think in previous generations may not have been the case.
And it's even gotten to the level of the president.
I did have one very brief meeting on it, but people are saying they're seeing UFOs. Do I believe it? Not particularly.
But former Navy pilots tell CNN they still can't explain the objects they spotted. We spoke to Ryan Graves, who flew Navy FA-18 Super Hornet fighter jets. He was on that same mission off Jacksonville, which spotted this object.
Well, if there's look at that thing. It's rotating.
Graves told us this object was similar to what he saw on training missions off the southern coast of Virginia throughout 2014 and 2015.
That was one of the most amazing things to us, or at least to me, was that these objects would be out there all day. And the speeds that they're exhibiting, as well as the flight characteristics, there's no platform or really energy source that I'm aware of that could allow something to stay in the air as long as these objects were.
Graves told us he and his fellow pilots first thought these objects were drones, then a near disaster.
Someone accidentally had one of the objects flying between his aircraft at very close range and gained visual, realized it was very unlikely that it was a U.S. drone program.
Another former Navy fighter pilot, David Fravor, told us he saw a UFO during a training mission off San Diego in 2004 on a clear day. What surprised him? The object had no visible propulsion and was much more agile than a plane or a helicopter.
This was extremely abrupt, like a ping pong ball bouncing off a wall. It would hit and go the other way and change directions at will.
Skeptics say these objects could simply be military hardware being tested on classified missions, unbeknownst to the pilots who spotted them.
It's probably one part of the military not telling the other part of the military what they're up to, for a good reason.
Still, Graves is happy that the Navy has a newly upgraded process for pilots to report these sightings.
If these things are operating in airspace, the smallest amount of damage they could do is potentially take out a couple of lives in an aircraft, and I think that alone is worth the investigation.
Now, we asked U.S. Navy officials about those comments from Bill Nye, the science guy, that these could simply be cases where one branch of the military does not tell another what it's doing. A Navy official did not respond directly to that, but did tell us they are working with the U.S. Air Force and other branches to better understand what pilots are seeing. Another Navy official told us the Navy does not believe that aliens have been flying around in U.S. airspace, but he said they do have to investigate all of these reports of unidentified aircraft. Wolf?
They certainly do. All right, Brian Todd, good report. Thank you very much.
All right, listen, because I know I'm going to say this and people are going, come on, but there have been several recent sightings of UFOs by U.S. military pilots. So many, in fact, that President Trump and top members of Congress have just been briefed by the Pentagon about them.
All right, joining us now to talk more about these unidentified flying objects, Leroy Chow, our favorite retired NASA astronaut. Leroy, welcome back.
Great to be with you.
So let me ask you, typically these UFOs are mysterious at the time and then usually explained later. Is that your experience?
Absolutely. And I agree with the comments that this is probably one part of the government not talking to the other part. We know there are classified programs going on. We don't know what they are. And you can bet that some of those classified programs involve flying vehicles. You know, my own experience as an in space case, it's been explained later as either caused by humans or by natural phenomenon. And I can give you an example. On my last spacewalk, we were in that twilight when we were just right between just almost into sunrise, and you really are disoriented. You're kind of in a fog, and you can't tell just for a few seconds whether you're looking at the Earth or into deep space, and there's this kind of a light fog. And I saw what looked like lights flying in formation going by, and I called out to my cosmonaut partner, hey, did you see those lights? And of course, that was reported as a UFO sighting. Now, I didn't think at the time that it was really a UFO. I thought maybe it was a military satellite constellation. And what it turned out to be is in that fog, they were actually fishing boats off the coast of South America lined up using very bright lights to attract squid. And the rotation of our orbit and the Earth made it look like they were flying by.
Wow. Well, but at least you got an explanation. Can we pop up those images again of the UFOs? I'm thinking there's somebody at home who has a theory, and they're looking at this going, it's the Russians. It's somebody from some other country that's spying on us. How plausible is that, Leroy?
Well, you know, I mean, it wouldn't be impossible, but I would think it's unlikely for a couple of reasons. Number one, the United States, historically, we've always been in the lead for these kinds of things. You know, when these programs come out and they're declassified later and we have operational vehicles, it turns out that we are actually doing a better job at these advanced aerial vehicles than other countries. Number two, if another country is developing these kinds of things, I think it's unlikely they would fly them in our airspace or near our airspace and risk, having one go down and be found by us. So I would think that they'd be testing them well within their own borders in order to control and contain those secrets.
All right. Leroy Chow, always appreciate seeing you. Thank you for waking up so early on Saturday and Sunday mornings for us.
Thank you, Leroy.
Take care.
ET from Capitol Hill. A group of senators just got a classified briefing about a series of reported encounters between the Navy and UFOs. CNN's Tom Foreman has the story.
Well, if there's another thing, it's rotating.
The grainy images captured by U.S. military pilots don't look like much, but their release by the Pentagon was more than enough to prompt a classified briefing for lawmakers, including Senator Mark Warner, Vice Chairman of the Intelligence Committee.
One of the key takeaways I'd have is that the military and others are taking this issue seriously, which I think in previous generations may not have been the case.
The president told ABC he's been briefed too.
But people are saying they're seeing UFOs. Do I believe it? Not particularly.
Also ramping up interest, some pilots are talking, describing strangely shaped aircraft flying faster than the speed of sound, dramatically changing direction and nearly colliding with a military jet.
These objects would be out there all day. And the speeds that they're exhibiting, as well as the flight characteristics, there's no platform or really energy source that I'm aware of that could allow something to stay in the air as long as these objects were.
Reports about a now-defunct $20 million program to track such sightings, started by Senator Harry Reid, emerged a couple of years back, triggering similar interest.
These aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the U.S. inventory nor in any foreign inventory that we are aware of.
You're not telling.
Late Night's Jimmy Kimmel has questioned former presidents about such encounters time and again.
I'm not telling you nothing.
I can't reveal anything. Oh, really?
If we were visited someday, I wouldn't be surprised. I just hope that it's not like Independence Day.
Yeah, right.
We're looking at worldwide destruction in the next 36 hours.
Still, if it's not that, the question remains up in the air. What is it? The military is clearly skeptical of any claim that this has anything to do with space aliens. But amid a lot of noise from conspiracy theorists that maybe this is some sort of advanced technology being operated by a foreign power, they have set up a new system for pilots to report what they have seen in these close encounters. Tom Foreman, CNN, Washington.